In today's video, we're looking at compound interest. Okay, now what's compound interest? Compound interest is the interest calculated on the amount of money that is the principal invested or borrowed at the beginning of each year, where the amount is the original plus the interest earned. Okay, so that is if I borrow like 10,000 from a person and then within a year I'm told to add an interest of 1,000 naira, the whole amount in that case now be what? Interest plus principal. The principal is 10,000, the interest is what? 1,000. So I'm going to pay 11,000 at the end of the year. So that's relatively like compound interest. So in which case I can say that what? Amount equals what? Principal plus what? The interest that is added on the money. Okay, so let's look at this example. Find the total debt, number 1, and number 2, the compound interest chargeable on 300 naira for 4 years at 20% per annum. Now, looking at this question, we have our principal, we have our time, and we have our rate. Now, if it were to be a normal question, you might say that you are looking for the simple interest. But for this question, how will I know it's a compound interest question? The basic thing that will make it a compound interest question is when you see per annum. And per annum means per year. So when we talk about per annum, it means I'm going to be solving it individually. For the first year, I'll solve. For the second year, I'll solve. For the third year, I'll solve. And for the fourth year, I'm going to what? To solve. Now, for each of those years, it's going to be 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. For each of those years, that is to represent our time. And we have two methods to solving compound interest. One is this one. The second one is the formula method. So, that is, I'm going to be introducing a formula I'm going to use to solve the question. But for this question, let's see how I'm going to solve it. I'm to find the total debt, and number 2, to find the compound interest chargeable. Okay, now, for this question, I'll be using two formulas. The first formula is what? Simple interest formula, which is what? Principal times what? Rate times time over what? 100. And I'll be using the second formula, which is what? Amount equals what? Principal plus interest. Or I can write A equals what? P plus I. Okay, now let's solve. So for the first thing to write is what? Parameters. Well, my principal is what? 300 naira. My rate is what? 20%. And the time for the first year is what? 1. So, what am I going to write? For the first year, what do I have? I'm going to have it as what? Principal, that's 300, times rate, that's 20, times time, which is what? 1 over 100. In which case, 2 zeros cancel 2 zeros. My answer is what? 60. So my answer here now is what? 60 naira. Now for the first year, I have an interest of what? 60 naira. In which case, the amount, which is the second formula I'm going to be using, equals what? Principal plus interest. And my principal for the first year is what? 300 plus what? 60. That gives me what? 360 what? Naira. So after the first year, I have an amount of what? 360 naira. For the second year, my principal now becomes the new amount. Okay, my principal for second year now becomes what? The new amount. That's 360 naira. My rate remains the same thing, 20%. And my time still remains what? 1 year for the second year too. Now, in which case I'm going to be using my interest formula to solve for the interest, where my I equals what? Principal times what? Rate times time over what? 100. And this leaves me with what? 360 times 20 times 1 over what? 100. In this case, what do I have? 0 cancel 0, 0 cancel 0. My answer is what? 72 naira. So my interest here is what? 72 naira. Now, what is the amount? The amount for this second year now becomes what? A equals principal plus interest. When my principal is what? My principal is what? 360. My interest is what? 72. So that becomes 360 plus what? 72. Okay. And that leaves me with what? 432 naira. Okay, so this is the amount for the second year. Now for the third year, what will I have? I will have the same thing. Principal times rate times time over 100. When my new principal is the last amount I got. That's 432 times rate 20 remains the same. Year 1 for what? 100. So this cancels this, and I have my answer to be what? I have this answer to be what? This should be 864. If I multiply, divided by 10, that becomes what? 86.4 naira as the interest for the what? Third year. In which case, what now happens? My amount now becomes what? 432, which is the new principal, plus 864, plus 86.4, which is my answer to be what? 518.40 naira. Okay, so after which, for the fourth year, what will I have? I will have my new principal to be what? The last amount, 518.40 times 20 times 1 over what? 100. This cancels this. If I multiply, I will have this as what? Okay, so I will have it as 1036.8 divided by 10. That gives me what? 103.68. Okay, that's for the fourth year. Amount for the fourth year now becomes what? Principal, which is what? 580.40 plus interest, which is what? 103.68. Leave my answer to be 622.08 naira. Okay, now for that is the total debt for the whole 4 years. So now solve number 2 question, which is what? The compound interest for that is chargeable. Compound interest chargeable now becomes what? To get the compound interest chargeable becomes what? The total debt minus the initial principal, which is 300 naira. The total debt minus what? The initial principal, which is what? 300 naira. In other cases, they might ask you to find the compound interest payable. But in other cases also, you can be told to find the compound interest chargeable. If you are to find this, that's when you do the subtraction. If you are not to find this, you leave it as what? 622.08. If it was for 5 years, I would have continued. But since I'm solving for 4 years, I have to stop here. On subtracting, what do we have? I will have what? 322.08 what? Naira. And that's all.